2nd of Morning Star, 4E202, Day 139. This morning, as I was complaining about all the gear and collection of things I had to pack up, Uthgerd casually suggested that I needed a house. It was an interesting notion. It did not seem a bad idea, and I decided to ponder it further. This land was starting to feel more like home than Cyrodiil. Leaving camp, we found a small pool called Mara's Eye Pond, just down the hill from Gallows Rock. There was a tiny island in the middle which, to my surprise, had a secret trapdoor built into the ground. We ventured inside and found a vampire lair, dubbed Mara's Eye Den. We eradicated the bloodsuckers and looted everything of value from the den. South of Gallows Rock, there was another small pond, this one unnamed. Overlooking the pond was a shrine of Talos. Although I didn't worship him as one of the 8, I joined Uthgerd in leaving a small offering. It was a sign of gratitude for coming out of our recent battles unscathed and uninfected. We found some interesting ruins by the river and abandoned prison. As Uthgerd likes to remind me, many of the ruins across Skyrim were built by ancient Nords, including this fortress. This one, however, appeared to be inhabited more recently. I guessed that we would find bandits farther down in the ruins. As it turned out, it wasn't bandits. It was Imperial soldiers, and they were not the sort to make me proud to be their kinsman. A note we found in the upper section of the prison indicated that they knew storm waters were going to flood the lower levels of the prison. Rather than move the prisoners, the orders were to kill them or let them drown. It was barbaric. I am sometimes ashamed of my own countrymen. It appeared that the prisoners were indeed left to drown, as their unhappy ghosts were haunting the ruins. As we ventured farther into the fort, the plot thickened. Many of the ghosts appeared to be Imperial soldiers. Perhaps they were caught in the storm as well? In the prison cells, we found another note. This one detailed an escape plan the prisoners had hatched to get away during the chaos of the storm. It pointed us to a grate in one of the cells that, according to the note, opened to a tunnel leading outside. After exploring the prison cells and finding nothing else of interest, we lowered ourselves into the tunnel below the grate. From the number of skeletons we found, it was clear that many did not make it out alive before the storm hit. We could not tell from the bones who had been soldier and who prisoner. We followed the tunnel to a ladder which led up and out. The secret escape came out underneath a bridge just north of Fort Amal. I made a mental note of the location. It would be good to remember in case we ever needed a quick getaway while traveling in the area. Just across the river from the abandoned prison was a ruined house smashed by a fallen tree. Inside was a shrine to Dibella and a copy of a raunchy book, The Lusty Argonian Maid. I wondered if this was a secret meeting spot for a woman devoted to the Dibellan arts, until I found the body of a man underneath all the rubble. We were able to identify him as Lucky Lorenz, though I think he was poorly nicknamed given what appeared to have happened there. On second thought, I wondered if the man's name referred to his luck with women. Overcome with morbid curiosity, I took a peek under his loincloth. The man had definitely been blessed by Dibella. Even in death, I could see why Lucky Lorenz might have been popular. While I was busy embarrassing myself, Uthgerd had put her time to much better use. She found another treasure map in his belongings, this one pointing to some falls in the area around Riften. The drawing did not look familiar, even though we had scouted around that hold thoroughly. I assumed it must be a poor likeness. We'd have to explore further next time we were down that way. Circling back around to retrieve our horses at the Talos shrine, the wind suddenly kicked up to announce the arrival of a wicked thunderstorm. Not wanting to lose more time, I pushed us onward through the weather. We carefully picked our way back down the hill to the road, passing by a Spriggan matron at an old stone arch. I hated having to kill the creatures, but they always seemed to attack without provocation. Uthgerd says I have a soft heart, and perhaps she's right. It was with considerable sorrow that I examined the corpse before we continued on our way. The storm broke just as we reached the road. We spied a lumber mill nearby and decided to investigate. Mixwater Mill, as it is named, is owned and run by a woman named Gilfrey. She told us that all of her workers had run off to join the war. I offered to chop a bit of wood for her before we left. It can't be easy to run a mill by oneself. With evening approaching, we decided to head for Darkwater Crossing to spend the night. The water just below the mill wasn't too swift or too deep, so we forded the river there and headed across the sulphurous tundra. The miners at Darkwater greeted us warmly, and we were able to settle in just as night fell upon us fully. Anarchy Cragjumper, the mine owner's wife, asked me about the bandit leader hiding out in Winter's War. Relieved to finally know who had asked us to deal with him, I informed her that he was dead. In return, she offered to clean and repair my armor. Come morning, I was outfitted in a freshly brushed, oiled, and mended set. She even expertly readjusted some of the straps and laces so that it's easier for me to move. Before we took our leave, Anarchy pulled me aside and begged me to take her with us. I was sorely tempted. I did not want to deprive her husband of a wife, but my heart ached for the woman. Through all of my adventures, I had come to cherish my freedom and could not imagine living an existence as dull as hers. I promised to come back as often as I could to share stories of all the wondrous things we saw on our travels. Third of Morning Star, 4E202, Day 140. Uthgerd and I had decided to travel to Ivarstead to pick up the last of Willandria's lost items and then continue on to Riften. I had Grelka's satchel to deliver and was also anxious to show Branche the journal we had found. Our trip to Ivarstead was uneventful. After visiting Bodhi at the farmhouse to get Willandria's spoon, we had lunch at the Vilmere Inn. Despite some light rain, we set off for Riften immediately after our meal in hopes of making it there before dark. We made it in good time, despite a few stops for gathering alchemy ingredients. Along the road, we passed one of the many travelers I have seen with sores covering their exposed skin. I normally gave them a wide berth, as I did not know what afflicted them and had no wish to catch it. However, for some reason, today I decided to stop and speak with the traveler. He confirmed that he had some kind of plague. I started to console the man and wish him an easy passing, but he laughed it off. He told me that he will survive the sickness because of Periite, one of the Daedric lords. He spoke of a man named Kesh and urged me to visit him. He even insisted that I pull out my map to mark the spot where Kesh could be found. After bidding the traveler farewell, I watched until he was safely out of sight. Then I scrubbed my hands in the dirt and cast a continual heal on myself until I ran out of magicka. While I was not sorry I'd spoken with the man, I did not want to take a chance that he'd infected me. 4th of Morning Star, 4E202, Day 141. We spent a quiet, warm night at the Bee and Barb in Riften. The following morning, we set out to deliver all of the items we had collected. Grelka nearly snapped my head off when I inquired about the contents of the satchel. However, she seemed grateful for my help in delivering it. Willandria did not even remember asking me to retrieve her items, though she at least paid me handsomely with several powerful scrolls. As for Branche, he snatched the journal out of my hands before I could even tell him about it. He believed that it was indeed the answer to his heritage. I was heartened by their gratitude, odd as the various forms of gratitude had been. It left me feeling quite charitable, so when Miol remarked again about her lost sword, I determined to make that my next mission. Mzinchileft was not far from the mountainous area around Gallows Rock. We could complete our survey there and then look for the sword. We traveled back north towards Windhelm, turning west just before the city. Spotting some ruins in the hills, we explored the area and came across an old fort named Morvenskar. It was inhabited by renegade mages, or at least it had been before we cleared all the vermin out. I didn't want to know any more about what they'd been doing inside. We found numerous rooms littered with fresh bloodstains, and in the depths of the fort, we found the remains of some victims in a makeshift furnace. They appeared to have been burned alive. The perpetrator, a nasty wizard named Neris the Wicked, proved a formidable foe. In the end, though, he was really no match for the combined efforts of myself, Uthgerd, and Lola. As we left the fort, I noticed a riverside shack just across the river. We crossed over to investigate and found the shack taken over by a huge cave bear. After slaying the bear, we discovered signs that the bear's last victim had been the unfortunate fisherman who lived there. There was nothing to do except say a quick prayer for his soul and continue our journey. Back across the river, we rode up the snowy hillside and found the dwarven ruins of Ralbathar. Of course, it was home to a group of bandits, including one dandy calling himself Alain Dufant. We did not venture deep into the ruins, but we did take some time to clear out the bandits. Due west of the dwarven ruins, we came across another strange rune wall high on the top of a snow-covered mountain. Like the others, it chanted and pulsed at me, although I did not go near. What puzzled me about this particular monument, named Shearpoint, were the enormous bones littering the ground. Reminiscent of Northwind Summit, it seemed a very unlikely place for mammoth skeletons. How did they get all the way up there? And why? Heading down the mountain and back past a half-frozen pond, we found more dwarven ruins at the base of the mountain. These were called Erkenthand, and there were more bandits inhabiting them. Those rabble fell to the same fate as other bandit scum we've found in Skyrim. I wish I could feel like our efforts were making a dent in their activities, but they seemed to breed like rabbits. From atop Erkenthand, I thought I spotted an inn-like building at the far end of the pond. Feeling hopeful, we headed that direction as evening started to set in. I was relieved and gratified to find that I'd been right. We found the Nightgate Inn right alongside the main road and settled in for the night. While eating a nice, warm supper, I was accosted by a courier. He had a strange letter for me from a woman named Muiri. She claimed that I had done her a favor by killing Alain Dufant, one of the bandits at Ralbathar. She bade me to visit her in Markarth for a reward. It felt very suspicious. I was not certain I should go, and Uthgerd agreed. Instead, I tucked the letter away, and we made plans for our next day's scouting adventure.